the nation and the state. And no matter what we did, we just found that there was actually very little we could do, because everything had been hollowed out, all the state institutions, and everything had been rigged. Like the electoral system has been rigged. It should not be the way it is. And in fact, we need to urgently reform that. But, you know, I mean, I remember I was on my way back from the airport on the day that Mandela was inaugurated, and I was driving from the airport, and on the radio I heard the jets fly by as the Defence Force paid tribute to the first democratically elected Black president, and I was weeping. I mean, I actually had to pull off the highway because I was just crying with all this emotion. And now, well, I'm sort of crying again, because, you know, we are in a position where we actually have to start a new struggle, and that is a struggle to reclaim our own country, and we have to all stand together in order to take it back from a rotten, crooked elite. And that elite is not just like ANC, it includes big business as well.
Definitely. And there seems to be this ongoing or now overt collusion between private capital as well as the political class, which to a degree has caused the current quagmire that we're in. Any observations in how the status quo is being sustained by the private capital class with political means, or using politics as a vehicle for reaching the means that they have?
Well, Taki, this all started long before 1994. Hey? There was actually a counter revolution, in my view, before 94. And what actually happened was the exiles came back and they sort of squashed the UDF, which was a hugely popular movement. They sort of drew that into like ANC and subordinated it. And then, you know, a lot of people who would have been amazing were either excluded or shunted out or murdered. And so what happened was that like exiles, not all of them, but I mean the cabal that was running it. I mean, if you remember all those meetings that were held in the run-up to Desa and Mandela's freeing, there was, you know, the Dakar meetings, and, you know, they were all the businessmen went to meet the ANC and found, God, they were so congenial, you know. Becky smoked cigars and swilled his brandy in his brandy glass like a true gentleman. Well, you know, what actually happened in those meetings, we don't know, because there aren't minutes of it.
True.
But what I suspect happened is that, you know, everyone sort of agreed that in order for a stable transition, we would need to, you know, sort of keep the business deal, as it were, going. And that has remained until now. I mean, the Marikana massacre, which was sort of partially overseen, as it were, by our current president, was really about the same thing, about migrant labor and slave wages for the rock drillers who worked underground. And if you just, to use that as an example, if you took the salaries of the top 3 executives of Lonmin, you could actually have paid all of those rock drillers the same 12,500 that they were demanding, and there would still have been money left over for the shareholders. So, you know, we've just, all that actually happened in like 94 is like one elite was exchanged for another. And now we have a black elite, an ANC elite, and a black business elite who, with the white elite, which actually hasn't had to stand down. I mean, you know, you just look at what everyone says about the Stellenbosch mafia and what they say about, you know, Marcus Jooste still hasn't been charged with anything. And so it goes on and on and on. And so there is no real change that has happened at the economic structural level. And that is the point at which we need change. We cannot go on with a neoliberal system that goes on exploiting human beings the way it does. We actually have to change that. Otherwise, there will be a war here. You know, people have to get land back and they have to be able to work on that land. If you don't reform the land thing and hurry up, you know, urgently, there's going to be a war about that. And, you know, our leaders just don't get it. They don't.
We've recently emerged from the different levels of lockdown, and one could not help but be gobsmacked by the level of brutality meted out by the security cluster against citizens. One, from the post-lockdown, number 2, how people were kept indoors. We saw visuals on different parts of media where we saw the brutality of police, and you ask yourself, where is justice in all of this? Is the defense force really the right tool to be used to keep people indoors? What were your observations regarding that?
Well, if you're asking me about how well our security cluster has performed, which is, you know, all the arms, the police, the army, all the rest of it, I would say, in a word, no, they are useless, uniformly useless. And I use the word advisedly. I'm working on a story now, and I've been researching it for a long time, about the police. And, you know, the level of incompetence, especially at senior level, and the level of just sheer criminality, especially at the level of generals and colonels and whatever, is just astounding. I mean, you know, we have a minister who was fired for a crooked rental deal. You know, it's absolutely bizarre. So I don't, until we can actually sweep those sort of people out and put in properly trained people who have degrees and, you know, who have been trained in proper policing methods, we aren't going to go anywhere. But, you know, what was interesting at the time was that Floyd was murdered in, what was it, Wisconsin or whatever, and everyone was saying Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Floyd, his name was all over the media, all over the world. And in South Africa, we had his name everywhere. And then I said, but where are the names of the South Africans who've been murdered by the security forces who are just clamping down on the lockdown? And I drew up a list of about 18 cases, and it was very difficult to try and find the names of them all. And I still don't have all the names, but I do have some case numbers and things. But, you know, I mean, our police sort of have the idea, and it's reinforced from the generals and the minister, of the way to police is to skop, skitten, donor.
Yes.
It's not about going into the community and addressing the root causes of crime, which are poverty and unemployment, and the fact that people do not trust the police because they are corrupt. So, you know, until we deal with these things and we train the police properly, I mean, it's hopeless expecting them to do anything. That's why, you know, when your car is stolen or whatever, the only reason you report it to the police is for the insurance, not because you think they will find your car.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think the security forces are just a complete mess. I mean, our defense minister smuggles a young woman in from like African countries. She goes on jaunts on South African Air Force jets and things, and she's still employed as the minister. I mean, I don't get it. How does this happen? How is it that people are not actually held accountable? Our president has promised us that they will, but they aren't. They're just liars, you know.
Not only that, also I think we've read recently of the Bushiri matter.
Yeah. Jeez, what a shocker.
It's a similar scenario in a different time. And tell me,
Yeah.
now approaching elections next year, are we likely to see an upset to the ANC empire and perhaps a curtailment, if you may, of the hunger politics that we see pervading our media as well as our political discourse in South Africa?
Okay. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't think we will see a big change. I think we will see a decline in ANC support, but you know, all the opposition parties or groups or movements or whatever have spent the last few years gazing at their navels, twiddling their thumbs, shooting themselves in the foot, sticking their heads in the sand, and generally just, I mean, being really stupid. I mean, you have, you know, I don't want to sort of pick anyone out, but, you know, you have the DA. Well, I mean, the Dark Ages or the Dinosaur Alliance, I don't know, or you have the yeah, but I mean, really, they are not an option. They have not provided any kind of alternative ideology or strategy or plan to bring South Africa out, except more of the same neoliberal rubbish, which the IMF and the World Bank admitted years ago does not work anymore. So, I mean, really, they are irrelevant, absolutely irrelevant. And this new election will show everyone, I think, just how irrelevant they are. Then, you know, then you have the Socialist Workers' Revolutionary Party. Well, I mean, you know, the name alone is just going to turn off 70% of the population, if not more. So, you know, why choose a name like that sounds so revolutionary and so cool, you know, to get in your camo outfit and, you know, but actually it's not going to really change anything. I mean, they're like EFF needs to clean up their leadership, because, you know, if the VBS scandal is still hanging around, who's going to vote for a party whose leaders are seen to be corrupt? I mean, I think that they have some good policies. I've read their whole like manifesto and everything, and they have some really good ideas. But with leaders like that, I mean, where are we heading? Someone who I think is going to make a big impact in a by the Nelson Mandela Metro is Krista Hack, who is an old UDF activist and has now started a new party called AIM. And that is not based on an ideology. It's based on, we're going to make the city livable again. We're going to clean up the mess. We're going to make sure the street lights work, the water works, the sewerage works. We're going to make sure the traffic flows, that, all of the things that people just really want to see in order to be able to get on with their lives. And as long as they can do that, everyone will become more productive because the money won't be looted all the time, and there will be more money, therefore, for service delivery. So I think he will do really well, and I think he will become the next mayor or something like that. I mean, he has the cred and he has integrity. He's a man of enormous integrity. I know him. I met him when I was making the Craddock 4 film.
Yes.
Amazing man, yeah.
And tell me, David, the neoliberal economic pressure and anti-dominance of private capital has seen South African political landscape shift and change in so many guises and forms, such that one cannot help but assume that, as you rightfully stated, a mild civil unrest or a revolt of sorts is afoot in SA. I would like you to see this sooner rather than later.
Would I like to see it sooner?
Sooner.
Are you asking me?
Yes, I'm asking. I would like to see a revolt sooner, owing to the injustices that we're speaking about now and the instability in the body politic of SA.
Well, look, it's a very complex situation, and I don't think there are any silver bullets. I don't think there's any quick fix. But I think I would rather see some social unrest sooner, hopefully to be able to create the kind of change that's needed, rather than us having to, get into a full-blown civil war. I mean, we have all these dreadful issues. We have a society that has been brought up and steeped for centuries in blood and violence. Now, those things don't just go away with a new generation of youth, generation X, or what will the next one be? Will it be A again? I mean, those things are so deeply ingrained in the psyche of the nation and our history, and there's a great deal of woundedness in our nation and a great depth to that woundedness. And when I see on social media, when I see white people saying get over it, or I actually just want to go and strangle them, because seriously, I get really angry, and I'm often extremely ashamed of my white compatriots, because they show an arrogance and a lack of feeling, a lack of Ubuntu, and they'll say, yes, but I brought up some black kids, or I donate to gifted givers, or whatever, and it's fine. But the racist attitudes are just so entrenched, and it's everywhere. Xenophobia, racism. We try to chase all the foreigners out because they're stealing our women and they're stealing our jobs. But the truth is that South Africans on the whole are bloody lazy. They are lazy. I mean, I've worked a lot in Africa. I think I've worked in 32 African countries, and people work hard there. Here, everyone just expects handouts. And while I also push for a basic income grant, because I think that is one way to kickstart a more local economy rather than a globally extractive one, and it'll also help even out the extreme inequality that we see. I do also think that we have to get up and do things for ourselves. Like, there's so much citizen apathy. There is such a lack of curiosity. There's a lack of curiosity about, well, how does the ANC fund all of these, these big dues they have? And how is it that there's all this money that goes to the provinces, but none of it seems to get down to the people? No one's curious about that. No one is asking questions. And that's because, social media just feeds us stuff all the time, and all we have to do is just look at our screens. We don't have to read anything. We don't have to think. We don't have to ask any questions. We just suck it all up. And then where does it go? Nowhere. We just suck it all up, and it infests our brains with trivia about celebrities or whatever. So for me, there's all of that. Then there's the fear factor. People are terrified of change, that big C word, change. And that's what Biko spoke about. He spoke about Black people needing to understand that the only people who could help them are themselves. And that's why there's also this thing about whiteness. Like, white people need to understand what white privilege is and how they can get over that. So, we need to change, and hopefully COVID is going to be extremely instrumental in that, in being able to force people to understand that change is necessary and it's constant, and they need to question everything that happens. So I hope that happens. Then there's the whole thing about life speeding up. Life has sped up enormously. I mean, when I was young, which is because I'm a oom, that was about 50 years ago. But when I was young, life moved at a much slower, more measured pace, and it speeds up every year. So everyone finds that they have less money, less time, they have to work harder. Everything's it's like being on a crazy merry-go-round. And so you haven't got time to think. You haven't got time to be mindful, to reflect on, which way should the country be going? Is this actually the right way? Is what the president said this evening the right thing? What did he not say? And so on, and then the last thing, I suppose, is the fact that it's still a really baby democracy. I mean, we've only been a democracy for what, 26 years. So, we need to mature in terms of not believe in everything we're told, not believe in, every promise that a politician spouts because they do it all the time, not to think that your loyalty can be bought with a t-shirt or a food parcel, but at the same time, there is a lot of hunger and poverty. And so it's easy for the ruling elite to do just that. And so I think, I would rather see sort of fairly widespread unrest, and I'm like not inciting it. I just think it's inevitable. And I think if ordinary people cannot see that, they need their heads examined. It's on the way. I mean, we've been the protest capital of the world for years now. But no, it's like not a story anymore. It was a story 3-4 years ago, but not anymore. And the truth is, it's only when you burn things that the people in power seem to listen. So when a school gets burnt or a library gets burnt, all the elite is beside themselves. But they don't understand that when you are angry and so poor and so hungry and so angry, you will do whatever you can to be heard. And if that means burning the school down, that's what you will do. People just don't think anymore. It drives me mad.
Definitely. David Forbes, I think we've touched on a number of key issues under the topic of delayed justice. Is definitely a ticking time bomb in South Africa. And unfortunately, due to time constraints and the show that is coming up after mine, I will have to respectfully ask to end our conversation right here. But thank you so much for always being willing to share. I would have liked to hear your views also on the Protect Our Public Protector campaign. Maybe as a parting shot, let's touch briefly on that and then we close off this segment.
With what on the public? Sorry?
Protect our public. Protecting our public protector.
Well, I think truly was amazing. But the one we have now, Makopane, she's absolutely useless. She's biased. And I think the sooner she leaves, the better for everyone. She is just not up to it.
Do you think, though, she seems to not be up to it because she seems to be favoring a particular narrative or a particular faction against the dominant one? Is it a matter of partisanship or is it a matter of her just being inept?
I think both. I think she should actually be struck off the roll because she's been proved in law to be so wrong so often and received, really poor remarks by judges for her decisions that no matter what the real cause is, she actually ought to be led to go out to pasture. And on the other hand, I would love to see Thuli as president, because we would then be able to make some inroads against patriarchy and the big man syndrome that is so rife in our lives.
Definitely. As I said, thank you so much for your wonderful insights. It always is a pleasure to learn from a seasoned activist as you are, from filmmaker to a social activist, and now a very vocal advocate for an imminent change that is needed in South Africa. I liked what you said when you said there isn't, or rather there shouldn't be a state of emergency, but rather urgency in South Africa, seeing how things are slowly winding down in a slippery slope. Thank you so much, David Forbes, for your time, as well as the guests that preceded you. I'm going to be playing you out with Michael Jackson's The Earth song, because I know you love Mother Earth.
No, man. No, man. Thank you. Not Michael Jackson, he's a pedophile.
Remember, we love the music, not the artist. And also following.
No.
After that, we're going to be playing Cesaria Evora, Sang de Berona, and hopefully, if time permits, the last one will be I.R. Rahman, and the song is called J-Ho. Thank you so much, and do enjoy what remains of this day and the weekend ahead. Thanks, David.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you to the guests that came before David. First and foremost, we had Professor Sipho Siepe, who spoke with us regarding the politics of SA and the state of capture that we currently have. After him, we spoke with Wynton Marsalis, all the way from New York, a noted jazz artist who's only been the only one in history to win 9 Grammy Awards for both jazz and classical music. After him, we spoke with Shelly Kushel Masondo, who's a wardrobe design icon. After her, it was Ntabiseng Tereo Mohanele, all the way from Lesotho. And lastly, it's Mr. David, it's David Forbes. As I was Do take care, David, as well as everyone who listened. Remember to follow us on our different social media platforms. You can also find us on YouTube, Mixcloud, on the Capital Radio website. And for advertisement, please do contact us. And lastly, we're going to have next DJ Sada with Saturday Night Fever. And as we always do when we close the show, Maibuye Africa. Thank you and take care.